On the occasions my parents decided to go out, we had family to look after us, but when I was 12, my parents decided they would trust me to finally babysit my sisters. This story occurred on the very first time I babysat. My parents had decided to go out for dinner and a movie on a Saturday night. They had found a midnight screening of one of their favorite movies from their childhood and knew they wouldn't be home till 1 or 2 a.m. At around 11 p.m. we were still up late when we heard somewhat of a rustling in our front yard. Easily putting it down to wind or a cat, I didn't worry too much. But then, on our front door. The three of us were terrified. Even in the 80s, there was no way in hell I was going to open the door to anyone. Another time at the door, I decided to brave it a little and headed to the front door. Before we knew it, the doorknob was rattling. I had to do something. Luckily, we had a wooden door stop. I quickly grabbed it and tried to quietly jam it under the door so that it hopefully couldn't be opened. Our only phone was right at the front door as well, so I was too scared to use it, fearing they would hear. So I ushered my sisters upstairs to my parents' room, where we just huddled. I knew we could see the front stoop from our parents' window. I couldn't resist not looking. My sisters felt the same, so we ended up slowly putting our heads under the curtains. What happened next has fueled our nightmares for life. We saw this old man. His eyes were dead, focused right on us from the second we looked out, like he knew exactly where we were in the house, waiting to catch our gaze. He had the most menacing, scowling face. We saw he was holding something, a brown paper bag. He held it by the top, making it obvious that something was inside, and slowly lifted it up to beside his head. He then lifted up his other arm with a finger pointed at the bag and face, slowly moving his forearm back and forth, creepily gesturing to whatever was in the bag. That whole thing lasted all of 5 seconds before we all ducked our heads back down, recoiling in fear. I stood up about a minute later and moved to the very edge of the window, praying he wouldn't see me through the side of the curtain. I peeked out and he was gone. My sisters and I just huddled together, scared for ages on the floor of the bedroom. And I don't remember much else, just our parents coming home and us in hysterics telling them what happened. We never saw that man again. I've been driving trucks for 20 years. I've seen my fair share of weird stuff on the road, but nothing prepared me for what happened last night on Route 47. It was past midnight. The highway was empty. The kind of empty that makes the headlights of your rig feel like a spotlight in a theater for no audience. I was halfway between towns, windows cracked for the cold, when I saw them. 2 kids. They were standing in the middle of the road like they belonged there, perfectly still. I slowed down, heart starting to pound, and as the truck rolled to a stop a few feet from them, I noticed their eyes. Completely black, not just dark. All black, no whites. Nothing. Their skin was pale, almost gray under my headlights, and their clothes looked like they'd been washed 100 times, faded and thin. But it was the eyes that got me. I've never seen anything like it. I felt it in my chest. I knew I shouldn't, but I wanted to help. And that's when they spoke. "Can you give us a ride?" The voices were flat, monotone, too polite, almost rehearsed. My stomach dropped. The hairs on my arms stood on end. Every instinct I have, every survival alarm in my head, screamed no. I shook my head, forcing my voice to stay calm. "No, sorry, I can't." They didn't protest. They just stared. And then, for the first time, I noticed how still they were. Not a blink, not a fidget, just waiting. And my chest tightened. I turned to grab a flashlight from the cab, thinking maybe if I got a better look, I could make sense of this, get a good look at them. When I turned back, they were gone. Just gone. No footprints, nothing disturbed. I stood there frozen for a long minute, flashlight trembling in my hand. Later, when I got home, I checked my dashcam footage. I wanted to see them again, maybe prove to myself I wasn't losing it. The video showed the road exactly as it had always been. Empty. Nothing. But the audio was worse. 2 tiny voices in the middle of a dead highway at midnight, with nothing to be seen. I haven't been able to sleep since. I don't know who or what they were, but I'll never forget those eyes. This happened about 3 years ago. I had two friends, let's call them Zach and Jake. One random day, we were bored, so we decided to host a party at Zach's house over the weekend. He had a big house, a huge backyard, and a pool, so it was perfect. It was also the weekend right before spring break, and his parents were out of town, which made it even better. When the day of the party arrived, we met up hours earlier to set everything up. Later that night, around 80 people showed up, and even more came after. That's when the drinking started. Around 1:30 a.m., people began heading home, but me, Zach, and Jake still had a lot of energy left. I should mention that Zach's house was the last one in his neighborhood. Behind his backyard was a massive cornfield, stretching about a mile long. There were no houses behind it, just fields. Zach owned a Can-Am. It had 2 seats, but someone could stand on the back. Around 2 a.m., the 3 of us had the bright idea to take it into the field while blasting music. I was driving, Zach was in the passenger seat, and Jake was standing on the back. We cruised around the field for about 30 minutes before getting bored and deciding to head back. But we decided to take one last turn. Halfway through the field, a man suddenly appeared. He looked around, 60 years old, with gray hair, wearing a vest, and holding a hunting rifle with a scope. It was hard to see him clearly because it was pitch black. The only light came from the Can-Am's headlights. We passed him without stopping. About 500 feet later, the Can-Am suddenly shut off by itself, even though the keys were still in the ignition. My heart dropped. We were still close enough that he could see or hear us, but when we looked back, he was gone. After a few seconds, which felt like minutes, the Can-Am finally turned back on. We didn't say a word. That's when we heard a loud bang, and something metal hit the Can-Am. We froze. A second later, we heard another shot ring out, and something whizzed past us. That was enough. We jumped back on the Can-Am and sped home. We drove through the backyard, parked it, ran inside the house, and locked every door and window we could. We turned off every light inside and outside the house. Zach had security cameras, so we went into the room with the monitors, showing the backyard and the front of the house. That's when things got even worse. A car slowly drove through the backyard area and stopped. Its headlights stayed on. It just sat there, idling, for about 15 minutes. We didn't recognize the car, and no one got out. We stayed completely silent, watching the monitors, afraid to even move. Eventually, the car drove away. We didn't sleep that night. What scared us the most was trying to understand why an elderly man would be standing in the middle of a cornfield at 2:30 in the morning, and how a car could have been so close to the house shortly after. The next morning, we checked Google Maps to see where the man could have come from. There were no houses, no shelters, nothing anywhere near the field. That meant he was either staying out there or he had been watching us the entire time during the party. We never told our parents or anyone else. 3 years have passed since then, and the 3 of us have gone our separate ways and don't talk much anymore. But it's a night I'll never forget, and one I still think about every time I hear something outside late at night. I had spent the evening at my girlfriend's place. She lives about 25 minutes away from me by car. I left around 1:30 a.m. on a weekday, so the roads were completely empty. No traffic, no people, just silence. I was about 10 minutes from home, driving down a wide road with 2 lanes on each side. I turned at an intersection where there's a convenience store and a McDonald's, then drove another 100 meters. That's when I saw something in the road. At first, it was just a shape, a silhouette moving erratically in my headlights. Then I realized it was running, zigzagging, right in the middle of the street. My first thought was that it had to be someone drunk or high, but as I got closer, the silhouette sharpened into a young woman. She was waving her arms wildly, like she was trying to flag someone down, and instantly, my brain went somewhere dark. I thought about all those horror stories, the ones where someone pretends to need help, where stopping your car is the mistake you never come back from. So, I decided not to stop. As I passed her, I saw her face. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't acting. She looked terrified. I drove another second. Then I did something that still makes my stomach twist. I slammed the brakes, made a U-turn, and went back. I didn't even get the chance to speak. She turned around and ran straight at my car. I panicked and rolled my window back up instantly. She grabbed the rear passenger door handle behind me and tried to open it. Again and again, the doors were locked. Through the glass, I could hear her screaming, "Call the police! Call the police!" My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. While it was ringing, I lowered my window just a few centimeters and said, Okay, calm down. I'm calling the police. You're safe." Something about that made her stop. She wasn't aggressive anymore. She wasn't erratic, just completely broken. She didn't look intoxicated at all, just pure panic. She told me she was going to walk back toward the convenience store. I followed her in my car, barely moving. She leaned against the wall, crying. And for the first time, I could really see her. That's when I noticed her hands. They were completely covered in blood. Not smeared, not splattered. I've never seen that much blood in my life. Her clothes were stained too. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I asked her quietly, "Ma'am, are you injured?" She shook her head. "No." I swallowed and asked, "Is that your blood?" She looked at her hands. Then she said, "No." My mind went blank. If it wasn't her blood, then whose was it? Before I could ask anything else, she started crying harder than before and said, in a voice I'll never forget, "I'm so ashamed of what I did. They will never forgive me." Before I could even process what that meant, a police car pulled up fast. 2 officers got out. One of them took my name and phone number and told me I could leave immediately. The other officer went straight to the woman. I didn't argue. I drove away. That was the last time I saw her. My friends and I have tried to make sense of it. We've come up with theories, but every explanation falls apart somewhere. If the blood wasn't hers, that explains part of it. Her words explain another part. But why was she running in the road? Why didn't she call the police herself? Why was she alone? Why has there been zero trace of whatever happened? Sometimes I wonder if I helped a victim. Other times, I wonder if I unknowingly stopped for someone who had just done something unforgivable. And sometimes, I wonder if the scariest part is that I'll never know which one it was.